Hello everybody and welcome to our next episode of Safeguarding News. I'm Vikkey Chaffe. I'm Head of Community and Partnership Relations at the Safeguarding Company.
Hello, I'm Ramsden. I'm the Deputy Head at St Benedict's and I'm Head of the Safeguarding panel for the Safeguarding Company.
Wonderful. And we've done a bit of a special episode for this one, really, because as you may have seen in the news over the holidays, there's been a lot of talk around the new measures that are going to be put in place to tackle the child sexual abuse, specifically around having mandatory reporting. So it's been in an awful lot of newspapers, hasn't it, Luke?
Yes, and it's in particular, it's been very politicised what's been put out there in the news. And so if you have sort of seen it on the TV or in the news, you might have seen, first of all, kind of quite big sort of headlines. In particular, what's worried a few people is, first of all, kind of quite vague comments about, we're just going to introduce mandatory reporting without any details, but also, unfortunately, a lot of political point scoring talking about grooming gangs, really quite overtly racist comments basically from government leaders saying, Pakistani men leading grooming gangs are at the heart of sexual abuse in the UK, which, as a lot of people have been very quick to point out in the press as well, to rebut that, to say, yes, there have been issues with that, but it's really important that just because the government is, potentially trying to score some points, that people don't put their eye off the ball and say, actually, there's a much broader issue of child sexual abuse across the country, and it's not at all right to say that there's one particular group in society that's been, at the heart of all this. And all the statistics would say absolutely that it's it's a much broader problem, and indeed a lot of the issues come from within the family home of many children. So I think what Vicky and I thought would be good just to talk through some more of the documents that actually lie behind some of these slightly overdone headlines and these politicized ideas. And so I think, Vicky, you were going to talk a bit about that. There's actually a surprisingly restrained formal government report, and we've included the link for this in this podcast.
Yeah, we have. And this came out the day after it was put into the news. So this was published on the 3rd of April, and it was from the Home Office specifically. So if you're wondering, oh, why did I not get anything around my DFE emails, it's because this has come from the Home Office. And as Luke said, it's the start of a journey, and they make it very clear that this is the start of the journey and that it is going to be a long ongoing. And in fact, it says that the first step is to introduce the duty is to call for evidence, which will be open to professionals, volunteers, parents, victims and survivors and the wider public. And it'll be the start of the extensive consultation to ensure everyone's views are represented ahead of implementing the new duty. So it's saying very clearly that we are at the start of this journey, and we haven't got to that point where we can start saying that things are mandatory. But what they have said is that the immediate support to support the professionals who work with children, they are providing £600,000 to the NSPCC whistleblowing helpline. So if a professional has concerns that their organisation isn't reporting or handling child abuse cases appropriately, they can contact the NSPCC whistleblowing helpline for support. Mm-hmm. So even though we're just opening the doors to start collating all this information from everybody, and I do have to say that I think that it's really important that they are asking for that information from survivors. Yes, I think that's really, really an important measure that they're putting in place, that they have actually put some money into being able to have something as we're starting to get the ball rolling. As you read through it, it does talk about Sarah's Law and how this impacts and how it's changed things. So just have a look around that. And Sarah's Law was implemented, let me just double check. It was in 2000, I think it was, and Sarah's Law was implemented because of 8-year-old Sarah Payne, who was murdered by a previously convicted sex offender. The updated guidance for the child sex offenders disclosure scheme will make it easier for the public to raise concerns online and reduce the timeframes for the police to respond to the inquiries as well. So they are saying that there will be, it's very multifaceted, this guidance that will be put in place. But one of the concerns that Luke and I were talking about was this will mean that there will be an increase in the report of the concerns, which is the whole point of it. One of the concerns that will definitely have to be looked at as we're going through this process is that of the actual resource that we have in order to handle these concerns. We were saying that actually, you know, everybody's at capacity at the moment, whether it's the police or it's social care, having more concerns raised, there will have to be a much deeper look into how we respond to these concerns.
Absolutely. And that leads us on to another link that we're going to put into this podcast, is that the government, when they talked about this, said that they're responding directly to the findings of the ICSA inquiry into child sexual abuse and their recommendation that there's mandatory reporting. And I would hugely recommend anybody in safeguarding to actually have a look at a really well considered and interesting set of ideas and recommendations that they've put out about mandatory reporting. And actually that, again, in the same way as the formal government report moves a step away from a sort of politicized, overdone, sort of knee-jerk reaction kind of idea to one which is, we need to think carefully about this. I think it's a really good thing to have a look at, and will hopefully be a very good basis for the government to have its inquiry about mandatory reporting. A few of the key points just to draw out for you is that, first of all, and England is a bit of an outlier in not having, or indeed England, Wales, Scotland, the other countries, are outliers in not having mandatory reporting, which I think is something which is interesting for us to think about from the outset. It's not an unusual thing to have a mandatory reporting idea. The other thing as well is that, talking to you about Vikkey's point about the growth in the number of reports, it puts some useful quantification onto that. So, for instance, in the Australian state of Victoria, in the decade after they started mandatory reporting, there was a 6-fold increase in the number of reports. So I think it really is vital that if we're going to do this, the government has to say, well, we need to have a 6-fold increase in the way in which we respond to these concerns. The other key thing that I think it does is allay a lot of concerns that people might have if they're safeguarding leads about, well, what's going to happen here? If I make a mistake, am I going to go to prison? If I make an honest sort of error in something, is this going to be a personal, professional disaster for me? And I think reading through, again, I won't go into all the details, but reading through the ICSA report, it's very clear that it's not seeking to criminalize and put pressure on professionals. Indeed, it's something that they're trying to support professionals with. A particular paragraph to draw out is one where it says, well, look, unless a professional has directly seen a particular, an example of child sexual abuse, it would not be a criminal concern. So they might be saying, a requirement to report even if there are just concerns. But I said it's only if you directly witness sexual abuse and then decided not to tell anybody that this would potentially be a criminal concern. And I think those ideas where it's sort of saying, well, some things there might be a fine for the school if they got it wrong, or it might be that there was a note on the record, all the way up to if you are clearly and blatantly ignoring sexual abuse, that there would be a legal, a criminal response to that. And indeed, one of the things that a lot of people are saying is, well, hang on a minute, isn't that the case already? And so, and actually looking into those details, actually KCSIE is very vague when you actually look at the details of the legal requirements for safeguarding leads. So while I suspect most schools in the country probably do, when they suspect there's child sexual abuse, do already contact an external agency, social services. So a lot of this will just be clarifying what you're already doing. And so again, I would have a look. I mean, if you're interested, and particularly if in safeguarding your cells, have a look at the ICSA section on the mandatory reporting, because again, it helps to clarify, helps to reassure, and again, it's a step further away from the overblown politicized kind of comments that were made a week ago. But I think those two things, the government report and ICSA, both can provide a really helpful framework so that schools can not only perhaps contribute to the consultation that the government is going to be doing, but also probably preempt. I mean, a lot of what we're going to be finding here, I think, is clarifying good practice, and that schools that are doing things the right way and tend to pick up the phone and do talk a lot with their LADO and do have good relationships with social services will probably find that it's just reinforcing their already good practice. So in that sense, I hope that's something that reassures a lot of people as well.
Absolutely. And we really encourage everybody who feels able to join in that consultation because, as Luke said, as educators, we're the ones that are probably the closest to these dreadful situations, other than social workers and things like that. And actually our voices and our opinions are really, really important. So if you can, please make sure that you are part of that. As always, we'll put all of the links in our show notes, and please join in the conversation in the community. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what it is that you have thought about this mandatory reporting, and tell us what your thoughts are on the government document. Absolutely. And that is it from us. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been Vikkey Chaffe.
And Luke Ramsden.
Wonderful, and we'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye. Bye.